Dear writer, you need to quit. This is the show that helps you know what to quit, what to keep, and what to question. My name is Becca Syme, and I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach with thousands of hours of coaching 6- and 7-figure authors, mid-listers, major award winners, and new authors alike, because everyone needs to quit something. Anyone can tell you what worked for them, and of course they say it might not work for you, but they can't tell you why. Well, I can tell you why. Welcome to the Quitcast. Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 32. And today will be one of our strengths for writers, so what to keep. And today we're going to talk about a question that was sent in by one of you all, which is fantastic because I love it when you send me suggestions for podcast topics. It also happens to relate to the topic that I'm going to be talking about this week at the Novelists Incorporated or NINC conference in Florida. So those of you who will be there, this will be a follow-up to what you're going to hear about. And those of you who've been watching the podcast, it will likely answer a couple of questions that have been coming up regularly in the comments. So I brought Terry Schott on today to talk to me about this. And so without further ado, take it away, Terry and Becca.
Okay. So tell us the question now. Well, what was the question? And you said it's one you get quite often.
It's one I get often. It specifically came in after the first balconies and basements that we did recently. And the question was, if I don't have any executing strengths in my top 10, then does that mean that I can't execute anything, right? And this person happened to have like maybe a 20 achiever, but this same question I get in the Strengths for Writers class, coaching cohort, and in the Strengths for Writers Facebook group consistently. Like, oh, I have a 7 achiever, I have a 12 achiever, I have a 20 achiever. Can I just bring that strength up, right? And the question is really, can I develop these strengths outside of my top 10 to be the compensation for not having these executing strengths, right?
Right. And the quick answer is no.
No.
But the good answer is, which we've talked about this so many times as well, and you can, is that so many themes have characteristics that present as other themes. I see it all the time. People talking, oh, it's really weird. I have, we saw it just the other day. Someone's like, I'm number 12 ideation, but I come up with ideas and stuff. So that's really weird. So I must be getting that from something else. And, or they're saying, no, my ideation just must be that strong. And the truth is they have 2 other themes, strategic, maybe intellection or deliberative or something that's presenting like that based on what they know. And so you'd say that all the time to people. So the good news is if you don't have something in your top 10, you can still get results from probably what's up in your top 5 by making your top 5 better. Correct?
Yeah. And it really depends too on what it is that you want to get out of the situation. Like an ideation is one with writers that I hear about this all the time because a lot of writers get ideation envy and achiever envy. And they want to have those things because they look at other writers who have them and they think that's what I want. I want that trait higher than it is. And of course, my answer is, but do you? Like, have you ever talked to Terry about his number 1 ideation and heard what that's like the burden that it is on some level and how hard he has to work to make sure that he's in the balcony of that ideation all the time? Yeah, he has really great ideas, like just phenomenal and constant, like every time you talk to him. But at the same time, that level of capacity produces what is it, the responsibility that they say, is it Superman, right? Like this kind of power.
It's actually Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility.
There you go.
Uncle Ben says that before Peter ignores him. But you're absolutely right. And your answer on that particular post was right. It was, why do you want that? What is it that you want? Because I remember someone else had an example. Maybe these are too many examples, but someone else was talking about how they weren't happy with their productivity, and yet they were still producing more than 9 out of 10 people produce, and they didn't feel that they had the top
maybe 10 out
themes.
of 10.
Yeah, and they probably didn't even and they probably didn't have the themes. And that's another great point. Sometimes being up there, if you get into the basement of a top 5, that'll stop you from actually,
Yeah.
silly as it sounds,
Yeah.
basement ideation can cause no production, nothing.
Right. And as can many other strengths, they can cause a lot of stoppage, right? And so whenever anybody asks me this question, like, well, I have a 7 achiever, can I bring that up and make it number 2 or whatever? And I'm like, on some level, that's not the right question to ask, because you're not addressing the things that are in the top 5. And I had a coaching call like this actually last week, where we talked about, are there places in your top 5? And this particular person happened to have activator, ideation, and input. And actually, I think this is the 3rd call that I've done like this in the recent past, where it's like, can I just please have higher achiever? And it's always, your top 5 have such huge potential. Like the difference in your capacity in your very, very top strengths versus even your 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there, let alone your 11 to 20, right, is so significant. The capacity that you have to have a basement in that area is just as high as the capacity to have a balcony. So it could be working against you just as hard as it can be working for you, right?
Right. There's also that always plate that you talk about. Like I find, like, I don't know, you and I talk every day, more than 10 times a day probably.
Yeah.
But you always say, oh my God, there's that self-assurance. There's that self-assurance,
Yeah.
self-assurance for the win. And my self-assurance is like 11. So that's an always plate for me. So it's not high enough to be a problem, because we've talked about that too. If my self-assurance was higher, it would be really tough to deal with me. But it's high enough that it gets me out and going through these things. So there's that always plate that you can tap into. But you're right. And that's always your focus, right? Let's focus on those top 5. And is that what you do then for someone that would have an ideation problem? Would you then sit down with them and go over their top 5 and show them how they can get ideas from making their top 5 stronger?
Yeah, or to see where their ideas could potentially come from, that they don't need ideation to get them. And sometimes, and I'll be super honest about this, sometimes the answer is, do you have a friend with ideation that you can call and brainstorm with, right? Because literally they're going to give you so many ideas you won't even know what to do with them. And you'll say no to most of them anyway, because you have other strengths that make you analyze those ideas differently. In the top 5 that you have the capacity to stand out in those areas, but they're not unilateral. So the combination of traits can sometimes produce something. Like, it's not uncommon for an input strategic to act a lot like ideation, because strategic is the proliferation of different paths and input is the bringing in of a lot of different information. And so a lot of times the strategic input will act, as for writers, a lot like ideation, because as opposed to somebody who has ideation like you have it, where your real bread and butter as a high ideation is stuff that nobody's ever thought of before, like things that just are so unique and different.
And my number 2 strategic probably just keeps
and your individualization. So like the combination of those things produces that. But just having ideas for books, like, what do I do next? What direction do I go in? Well, input strategic can act a lot like ideation in that arena. Something like an arranger strength can act a lot like achiever for writers, not just, strengths in a vacuum, but as far as what you want it to accomplish in your platform, arranger can act a lot like that. Responsibility can act a lot like that. Belief can act like that. Sometimes deliberative can act like that. So it's not the fundamental misappropriation I think we make because it's not just the people who are writing in, it's all of us who talk about strengths, it's me included, is that we make the behavior so unilateral. It's like achievers all do this, and therefore people hear that and they think, oh, so if I want to do that, I need to have achiever. Well, no, that's not the point. It's just that the combination of those traits all together, all of the different achiever traits, make up the ability to get better faster at achiever. but you can still execute things and have to-do lists and whatever, like without any achiever at all in your top 20 or whatever.
So when you're looking at a challenge you have, and your first instinct is to say, oh, maybe if I need this, and could I just make that higher instead? Think of the result you're looking for and see if you can get the results from what you already are strong at.
Yeah. Or see if there's something that's in your top 5 that's standing in your way. Because this is why we talk so much about development now in Strengths for Writers, that it isn't just about identification. It's about developing the traits that you have. Identification is only the first step, and understanding your strengths. Those are only the first 2 steps. The third step is you have to execute on it and make it better, because that's where the real power of strengths is. And this is what I'm going to talk about in the Standout Writer. The real power of strengths is not in the moment that most of us have had, right? Where we learn about them. I feel so validated. Isn't this cool? The world's finally speaking my language. Like, that is a really important transformational moment, but that's not the end of your strengths journey. It's the beginning, right? Like the strengths journey is development.
Right. And from what I've experienced in the last, I don't know how many months we've been doing this now, but it's coming on. Is it coming on a year?
9. Yeah, 9.
9 months. You're absolutely right. And so that's why I always say, learn the language. It's like learning in any language, right? If I want to learn French, and I do it by myself, very difficult. You need to find people that are in your life and you can talk to back and forth. Even if your ideas are wrong, you're talking about the terminology, learning together, that kind of thing. Because you're right. Because the step that you're talking about isn't something that the first stage, learning the language, learning the themes, is easy and quick. But the rest is nuance and practice and talking about it and seeing how one person, 2 people that have the same themes act totally differently, and figuring out why, where's that coming from, which is a great thing to do. And that's why your discussion groups are really good if people keep them positive. It's not, to me, it's not about telling people what to do, but it's about saying, this is me, so other people can see it. Because, well, it's the learner in me, but everyone should have that learner in them as well, where they can then see those themes work. But your rule of what you're saying at the beginning, I think, is really good, is that whenever I ask Becca a question, no matter what it is, she goes, look at your top 5. Look at your top 5. Or is it a balcony or basement? Is it effective? Well, I want to talk about number 22. Look at your top 5. Look at your top 5. Because that's a good thing that you've taught. And it's a good thing for people to do at home when they can't get access to you, or when they want to do some self-reflection, because it's more impressive to you when you get emails back that says, hey, I had this, but I looked at it a lot, thought about this, wrote down my behaviors, realized I was in a basement. Now I'm thinking this. What do you think? I know you get super excited about those kind of much different. This is a self-reflective thing, right?
Yeah. When it's a journey. I feel like it's a journey. This is the difference between something like other personality assessments, that their primary interest is the information that they deliver. So like, if I look at what I am on multiple different scales of personality matrices, the primary interest to me is, well, where did I fall? Where did I fall? And that's what's the fascination. But the key with strengths is that this is a long-term investment in you being a better person, a better version of yourself over the long term. Like, what we want isn't for you to just know who you are. We want you to be a better version of you. And that means that you have to keep developing those traits and keep looking at your top 5 and keep getting stronger in those and keep getting less weak. Because this is the other piece we talk a lot about in strengths, is the bottom 5 are not your weaknesses. The bottom 5 are just things you're not going to be great at, but your top 5 are generally where your biggest weaknesses are. Like, before I really developed my input, and I have a number 1 input, before I really developed that, it was the biggest time waster that I have ever seen. Like, it was on a nuclear level of time wasting. And when I started developing it and getting the balconies stronger, it was like, it became my achiever. Like, I always tell people, I don't have any executing strengths in my top 10, and I am so productive but it's because I have learned how to control the strengths that are in my top 5. Not because I got better at arranger, which is my top executing strength, right? It's not even achiever, it's arranger.
Right. You are absolutely right. What you said, your bottom 5 are not your greatest weaknesses. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this will make sense to everybody. Everyone that I've done a thing with, that I've gone over their themes, not only are they not their weaknesses, they don't even think they're real things. My bottom 5, I'm like, no one thinks that way. No one would do that. Yeah. So they don't even occur to you. So you're absolutely right. Rather than think those are your weaknesses, those are just, that's a fictional planet that someone else lives on.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. It's those things that mean something to you that you use every day and you use wrong, which, by the way, again, I said this to you the other day, which is mind boggling to me. I'm not finding lots of people that talk about the basements, and the basements are a key thing to talk about.
Yeah.
It's great to know the positives of these things, but it's also super powerful to know when you're hangry. It's super powerful to know when ideation's not working, or when belief is not working, when your futuristic has gotten in your way, or when your context is bringing you down, and how to, if it's your top 5, then know that, see that, and then go, wait a minute, how do we make it a strength? And that's
so we clearly have a lot more to cover about this topic, right? When you talk about strengths development, there's a limitless supply of things that you could be talking about. So this is a quick reminder to make sure to comment and ask questions. If you have any questions you would like to send in for potential topics, email us at info at the Quitcast, QUITCAST.com. Or you can also leave a comment here in the show notes, and we will answer those questions, or we will do a podcast topic, because that's been so fun for us to do recently. I am going to be in Florida at the NINC conference this particular week. It is the 23rd of September, and I'm heading to Florida. So those of you who are there, please come and see me. I would love to talk to you about strengths for writers. I will be doing a workshop called the Standout Writer, which will be on Thursday, and I would love to see you there. And otherwise, please leave a comment in the show notes if you have any questions for us, and we would love to talk to you more about strengths for writers. There are a couple of cohorts coming up pretty soon, and I'll put those links also in the show notes. So thank you all for being here. You know how much I love talking about our personality alignment and how we can be the most successful. I look forward to talking about this in future podcasts. So I will see you on the next Quitcast.